Playdate starts like a harmless suburban comedy, then turns into a full-blown chase movie where two dads and two kids are running from mercenaries, a secret military program, and an insane cloning operation. What makes it even crazier is that one of those dads is not really just a dad. One of the kids is not really a kid in the normal sense, and the ordinary guy in the middle of all this has to figure out how to protect his family before the whole thing gets him killed. The story begins with Brian Jennings at one of the lowest points in his life. He is a forensic accountant, but he has just lost his job. Now he is stuck at home while his wife Emily goes back to work at her law firm. Brian tries to act like this change is temporary and manageable, but it is obvious he feels lost. He does not know how to fit into this new role, and he is trying way too hard to prove he can handle it. At the center of that struggle is Lucas, Emily's son and Brian's stepson. Brian cares about him, but there is still a gap between them. Lucas is getting bullied at school because he is quiet, different, and not interested in the rough sports-obsessed version of boyhood the other kids expect. Brian wants to help, but most of his efforts feel awkward. He keeps thinking like a problem solver instead of thinking like a father. Then a possible answer shows up in the neighborhood. Brian meets Jeff Eamon, an energetic, larger-than-life stay-at-home dad who seems to be good at everything. Jeff is strong, relaxed, confident, and almost absurdly capable. His young son CJ is with him, and the kid is strange right away. He is silent, intense, and way too strong for a child. Still, Jeff seems friendly, Lucas needs a friend, and Brian is desperate for a win, so he agrees to a playdate. The playdate takes place at an indoor kids center called Buck E. Cheese. Brian expects small talk, some games, and maybe a little bonding time with Lucas. Instead, the whole day blows up in minutes. Armed mercenaries storm the building, turning a family outing into a combat zone. Parents scream, kids run for cover, and Brian barely understands what is happening before Jeff starts reacting like a trained soldier. Jeff moves with total control. He disarms attackers, spots exits, and gets the group moving before Brian can even process the danger. Brian, Lucas, Jeff, and CJ escape in a stolen minivan, and only then does Brian realize this attack was not random. The mercenaries are after Jeff and CJ. As they race away, Jeff finally starts explaining himself. He says he used to serve in Delta Force, but his military career ended badly. Later, he took a job as a security guard at a secret facility. One night he found CJ locked inside and assumed the boy was some kind of captive. Jeff could not leave a child there, so he broke him out. Since then, he has been running. Brian cannot believe what he is hearing. A few hours earlier, he was worried about playground conversation. Now he is in a minivan with gunmen chasing him, and the huge, friendly dad from the neighborhood turns out to be a former Special Forces operator who kidnapped a mystery child from a black site. The group needs somewhere to hide, so Jeff takes them to the home of his father, Gordon. This part of the story slows down just enough to show that Jeff is carrying his own old wounds. Gordon is bitter cold and clearly failed Jeff long before any secret program entered the picture. Jeff hopes for help, but Gordon mostly reminds him how abandoned he has always felt. The reunion gives Brian a glimpse of the man beneath the action hero image. Jeff is not fearless. He is just used to being on his own. While they are at Gordon's place, the group captures a man tied to the facility. This employee, Galifianakish, finally explains what is really going on, and the movie gets much stranger. CJ is not Jeff's biological son at all. CJ is a clone. In fact, his name literally means clone Jeff. He is the first successful child clone created from Jeff's DNA. The mastermind behind the project is an eccentric billionaire scientist named Simon Maddox, working with Colonel Kurtz, Jeff's old commander. Kurtz believed Jeff had the perfect physical traits for a soldier. He was strong, skilled, focused, and durable. But Kurtz thought Jeff also had one fatal flaw. He had too much empathy. During a past mission, Jeff refused to kill a child who had been turned into an unwilling bomb carrier, and that choice destroyed his career. To Kurtz, compassion made Jeff imperfect, so the project was built around copying Jeff's body while trying to remove his conscience. That means the facility is trying to mass-produce emotionless super soldiers, using Jeff as the template and turning children into future weapons. CJ is the first success. He is strong and fast like Jeff, but emotionally blank because he was never raised like a normal child. Jeff did not steal somebody else's kid after all. He rescued a copy of himself before the program could finish turning the boy into a machine. This changes everything for Brian. Up to now, he has mostly been reacting. Now he understands just how dangerous the people chasing them really are. At the same time, he is also forced to look at Jeff differently. Jeff is not just a walking muscle wall with weird survival skills. He is a man trying to save a child from becoming the same tool he was trained to be. The danger closes in again when Maddox and Kurt start threatening people connected to Brian. Emily becomes a target. Her safety is used as pressure and Brian cracks. He is not made for this kind of war. He is scared, guilty, and convinced that Jeff's chaos is going to get his family killed. So Brian makes the worst choice of the movie. He betrays Jeff. Brian lures Jeff into a trap which allows the enemy to recapture CJ. It is a brutal moment because Jeff had started to trust him and Lucas had finally begun opening up during the madness. Brian tells himself he is protecting Emily and Lucas, but the second it happens he knows he has crossed a line. This betrayal becomes the turning point for Brian's whole arc. He has spent the film feeling weak next to Jeff, but now he sees the truth. Being a father is not about avoiding danger at any cost. It is about standing up when your child needs to see courage. Lucas is crushed by what Brian did, and that shame hits harder than any threat from the villains. So Brian decides to fix it. He helps Jeff instead of hiding from him. The two men track CJ using a clever detail from earlier. Lucas had hidden his phone inside CJ's jacket, and that signal now leads them to a second facility where the cloning project is operating at full scale. The rescue mission takes them into the heart of the nightmare. Inside the compound, they find more cloned boys based on Jeff. Some are unstable, animal-like, and barely controlled. Others are still being conditioned for the future army Kurtz wants to build. The place feels less like a lab and more like a factory for stolen humanity. Brian is completely out of his depth, but this is where he finally starts becoming useful in his own way. He is not Jeff, he is not a fighter, but he can think, improvise, and commit when it matters. The film does not magically turn him into an action star. Instead, it lets him become brave while still being very ordinary, and that makes the character work much better. Jeff pushes through the facility to reach CJ while Kurtz closes in. Maddox, meanwhile, treats the whole operation like a twisted experiment. He is fascinated by what CJ will do once forced to choose between programming and attachment. In his eyes, the boy is not a son or even a person. He is a data point. That leads to the key emotional moment in the climax. Maddox places a weapon in CJ's hands and orders him to kill Jeff. This is supposed to be the final proof that the clone program works. If CJ can eliminate the original without hesitation, then the project has succeeded. Kurtz gets his perfect soldier. Maddox gets his breakthrough. Humanity loses. But CJ does not obey. Instead of killing Jeff, CJ turns on Maddox and shoots him. In one decision, the whole logic of the project collapses. Maddox wanted a being without empathy, but all the time spent with Jeff, Brian, and Lucas has changed CJ. The bond they formed during the insane run for survival gave him something the project could not control. He chooses people over programming. From there, the final fight explodes. Brian crashes a vehicle as a distraction, giving Jeff the opening he needs to take on Kurtz. Jeff and Kurtz have more than just a hero and villain relationship. Kurtz represents the version of Jeff that the system wanted, strong, obedient, and stripped of mercy. Jeff defeating him is not just about winning a fight, it is about rejecting the whole idea that strength has to mean cruelty. The battle tears through the facility while cloned children run loose and armed men try to lock the place down. Jeff reveals that he had planned for this possibility. He planted explosives earlier, knowing he might have to bring the entire operation down. Once the core fight is over, he triggers the charges. The facility erupts behind them as Jeff, CJ, Brian, and Lucas walk out alive. It is an over-the-top ending, but by this point the movie has fully embraced the chaos. What matters more is the emotional payoff inside that big action image. Brian and Lucas finally connect in a real way. Lucas sees that Brian came back, owned his failure, and fought to make things right. Brian stops trying to be the perfect substitute father and instead becomes something better, someone willing to choose Lucas even when it is scary and messy. Lucas tells him he is the best dad, and for Brian that lands like the moment he has been chasing all film. Jeff gets something too. He saves CJ not as a mission objective but as family. For a man who grew up feeling abandoned and then watched powerful men try to turn his own DNA into a weapon, that means everything. And CJ, the kid built to be empty, proves he is capable of loyalty and love. The movie still leaves one last twist before closing the book. In the mid-credits scene, Jeff and CJ show up at Brian S. house in the middle of the night for a sleepover. It should be a funny little tag, but it carries a threat underneath. Their house has been burned down by a fresh group of pursuers. That means Maddox and Kurtz were not the whole network. The cloning operation was bigger than one lab and the danger is still out there. So Playdate ends with a wild mix of action, absurd comedy, and surprisingly sincere emotion. What starts as a desperate attempt by Brian to help Lucas make one friend turns into a fight against a project built on taking empathy out of human beings. In the end, the regular dad matters just as much as the super soldier. The clone boy chooses family over design, and the whole story comes down to one simple idea. The people who care are the ones who save the day.